Deadpool 2 introduces us to a handful of comic book characters that most of us never thought we'd see up on the big screen. And yep, heads up, spoiler alert friends. Most of these characters were part of the X-Force, Deadpool's ragtag team of superheroes that he compiles in the movie. This includes the show-stealing Domino, a mutant merc with the ability to manipulate luck, Crews Bedlam, Bill Skarsgard's Zeitgeist, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who, side note, was a super obscure character that producers thought would be funny to put into the first film because of her name. Her girlfriend, who may or may not be Surge, a powerless man's named Peter, and a cameo from Brad Pitt as Vanisher, an invisible man. While a handful of them died in that helicopter scene, something that was particularly funny because of Zeitgeist's actual history of immediately dying after being introduced in the comics, one other character who was integral to the film's narrative and didn't die was Russell Collins, a young mutant with pyrokinesis that is being hunted down by Cable. Russell is actually another comic book character brought to life, Firefist, who in the comics is often considered to fall into that realm of obscurity. So today we are giving you a lowdown about Firefist with our list of the top 10 Firefist facts that you didn't know. And at number 10, Julian Dennison. For starters, let's discuss the cinematic adaptation of the character, the one that most of you are likely familiar with. Firefist's portrayal in the film by actor Julian Dennison is quite different than what the character is like in the comics. Ryan Reynolds had a major hand in this. He saw Dennison's breakup performance in the film Hunt for the Wilder People from 2016, in which the New Zealand actor acted alongside Sam Neill, wowing critics. Reynolds made sure that Firefist was tailor-made for Dennison, and he was the only actor ever considered for the role. In addition to that, Russell, for the most part, is portrayed as a villain of sorts in the movie, sort of, which not only subverts the traditional take superhero films have on villains in general, but made for a more interesting narrative too. Dennison also stated that he felt the role was special because of his chubbiness, saying that he had, I quote, "never seen anyone like me in other superhero movies," and that he was excited to be that for other kids who looked like him. And at number 9, he's an orphan. Russell Rusty Collins first appeared in the comics back in 1986 in X Factor issue 1, a superhero created by Bob Layden and Jackson Guise. The character was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and when he was young, his father, a sailor, died in the war. His mother would soon die afterwards too, leaving the orphan Rusty to go live with his uncle Ted. But that living situation didn't last long. After a while, Ted grew to see Russell as a whiner and sent him off to the Navy. His figurative families have been various too: the X Factor team, the New Mutants briefly, and even Magneto's Acolytes, a team that Rusty joined because he felt he owed Magneto, but a team that ultimately cost him his life, which was pretty unfortunate because he and his girlfriend Skids were having doubts about joining right before he died too. Up next, number 8, appearances. Firefist only has a handful, no pun intended, of appearances in the comics. Aside from his debut issue, he appeared in X Factor up until 1989, in 28 issues of the series, along with its X Factor annual issue number 3. He also appeared in X-Terminators, the New Mutants for brief stints, Fantastic Four issue 342, X-Force, 2 cable solo series, and 2 issues of the second volume of X-Men. Also, fun fact, he also appeared naked in his debut appearance. While his origin story was right smack dab in the first X Factor issue, his stories became less prominent as one of the members of the group's small mutant wards. During the Inferno story arc, he and the other wards, including Skids, a former Morlock that Rusty gets into a relationship with, take on the name X-Terminators, and teamed up with the New Mutants to help rescue mutant babies. He eventually catches the attention of Freedom Force, and he's severely injured by the Blob. During his recovery, he and Skids are forced into joining the Mutant Liberation Front, and then brainwashed. Up next at 7, obscurity. Firefist, up until the character's new iteration in the Deadpool 2 movie, is often considered to be an obscure hero. And if our last number was any indication of that, he started off strong, with solid involvement in X Factor, but then started to fizzle out, competing with many other strong personalities that the title boasted. And there were a lot of those. It was the original X-Men team, for heaven's sake. Aside from that, perhaps his obscurity is also due to the pyrokinetic mutants in the Marvel Universe, specifically the aptly named Pyro, who even appeared in 2 of the original X-Men movies. Pyro had debuted a few years earlier than Firefist, in 1981's Uncanny X-Men issue 141, as a villain who became part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This was the first of 2 characters to don that mantle though, the first being St. John Allardyce and the second Simon Lasker, who emerged in 2017 in X-Men Gold Volume 2 Issue 1. Lasker was also a villain briefly before approaching the Xavier Institute to make amends. Up next at 6, Rusty's powers. Rusty's got some pretty cool powers. He's a pyrokinetic who can psionically generate and manipulate heat and flame. Typically the flames generate from his body, but over time he started to generate them remotely too. He can control his fire's shape, size, and intensity with precision through mental manipulation. He can generate heat shields without having to bust out into flames, and he can also cook food if he concentrates real hard. After his powers revealed themselves while Rusty was in the Navy, he was captured by military police and then tossed into a prison cell with a straitjacket. His superior, Chief Jack Fisher, tried to kill him, but Rusty Rusty broke free when his powers burst out of him again. Fisher called up the X-Factor, who he believed were actually mutant exterminators, but were the original X-Men in disguise, and in X-Factor issue 1 they took Rusty into their care, after slamming his chief with a bill for a hefty $42,000 for their services. Rusty was one of the trainees to appear in that issue, and it was his first appearance in the Marvel Universe altogether. And at number 5, his creators. Bob Layden and Jackson Guice may not be remembered for creating Firefist, but they'll definitely be remembered for all of their other comic contributions. Let's start with Guice. He's an artist who has worked on Action Comics, The Flash, Micronauts, and Ruse. He got his start with the toy spin-off Micronauts at Marvel, after Al Milgrom offered to give him a shot. He would go on to draw the Marvel comic adaptation of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and inked Dazzler's solo title before penciling X-Factor and contributing pencils to the New Mutants in 1986, and later worked for DC on The Flash post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, which involved the new Flash Wally West. He would go on to be the artist on Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, and in 2000 for DC's Birds of Prey. In 2007, Brian Michael Bendis sought out Guice to work on Ultimate Origins, saying, I quote, "I've been a fan of his for years and years, and when I saw what he was doing in Iron Man, I had to have him." Bob Layden, on the other hand, is known for a lot. Not only his work on Iron Man and Hercules, but also for being co-founder of Valiant Comics with Jim Shooter. But long before that, he was publishing his own zine called CPL, Contemporary Pictorial Literature. This led to a partnership with Charlton Comics, and the production of Charlton Bullseye magazine, which was conceived in order to compete with both DC and Marvel, who were publishing in-house fan publications at the time. From there, Layden became the apprentice of comics legend Wally Wood, using that opportunity to get his foot in the door. And he did. While he was working at the Marvel offices with him, he overheard John Romita on the phone looking for someone to ink an issue of Iron Man, and he offered up his services. Layden moved on to ink the covers for The Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Iron Fist, and more. He would launch one of Marvel's first limited issue series, Hercules Prince of Power, and design the Marvel Secret Wars toy line for Mattel. After starting Valiant, he would return to DC and work on their Elseworlds imprints, and continue working for Marvel and Iron Man. Back to Rusty for our next number. In at number 4, he likes prostitutes. Much of his origin story is tangled up in an encounter with a prostitute. Now, Rusty has had a slew of different occupations over the years. Aside from being an adventurer, he was also a terrorist, a sailor, and a hardware clerk. The latter wasn't just the result of being a high school dropout, which also, by the way, he was. His uncle Ted worked at a hardware store and got him a job there when he moved to live with him. But then his Navy career, as we already mentioned, was prompted by his uncle's doing when he was kicked out. It was while docked at the San Diego Naval Yard that his powers came to fruition. He was making out with a prostitute named Emma Laporte in an alley, and his pyrokinetic powers kicked in, giving her multiple serious burns. He fled, panicked, and was eventually captured by military police. Later on, Rusty, feeling guilty, would cut a deal with Mask in order to sacrifice his looks in order to restore Emma's face to one of beauty. Emma, finding out about the deal, didn't want to get her looks back at the expense of someone else though. And at number 3, he died. Rusty was killed by Holocaust, a mutant survivor of Age of Apocalypse. But let's backtrack here for a sec. Rusty joined Magneto's team, the Acolytes, after Magneto had broken him and his girlfriend Skids out of the mind control that the Mutant Liberation Front leader Strife, aka Cable's clone, had them under. As we mentioned earlier, Rusty along with Skids joined the team because he felt he owed Magneto. They were on board the team's ship Avalon when an ice cocoon was spotted floating in space and was brought on board in X-Men Prime issue 1. And guess who was in that cocoon? Holocaust, who went on a rampage, still believing that he was in his own time. Holocaust drained many of the Acolytes' lives, which included Rusty, before Exodus clashed with the mutant in defense. Rusty's death is depicted in X-Men Volume 2 issue 42, but his actual killing blow is off the panels. And at number 2, he was resurrected. Luckily, that wasn't the last we saw of the character. Like most comic heroes and villains, Rusty would be revived. Sort of, though. In X-Force Volume 3 issue 21, Rusty was revived with the Transmode virus, a techno-organic virus that fed upon the infected beings and drained their energy. But this virus was a modified version that had the ability to bring mutants back from the dead into part of a hive mind. This was so that he could serve as part of the Black Queen's army of deceased mutants to lay siege on Utopia, the mutant nation. Her army also included the likes of the first Pyro, St. John Alderdice, Banshee, Caliban, Cyber, and the Hellions. After that went down, poor Firefist hasn't been seen since though. And finally, in at number 1, his television appearance. While Deadpool 2 has rejuvenated the character and brought him back to life, although in a quite different but more arguably lovable manner, this isn't Firefist's first rodeo, or rather adaptation. The character also appeared on the small screen, a much younger version in the 1992 X-Men animated series, in an episode titled No Mutant is an Island. The story finds Rusty, still an orphan, encountering Cyclops when he visits his orphanage in Nebraska. Rusty, having problems controlling his pyrokinetic powers, appeals to the X-Man member. But that's when Kilgrave shows up and offers to adopt Rusty. Later it's revealed that Kilgrave wants to use Rusty, along with other mutants Skids, Boom Boom, Richter, and WizKid, in order to aid his attempt to take over as governor. Cyclops is able to reach through to Rusty though, snapping him out of Kilgrave's control along with the other mutants affected. Alright, there we have it friends. What are your thoughts on Rusty? Would you like to have seen his character adapted, like the comic book one? Or are you guys loving the version that we got in Deadpool 2? I'm gonna have to vote for Julian Dennison on this one. There's a reason why the original Firefist is so obscure, and it's gets, cause he's not all that interesting compared to the other compelling characters out there in the Marvel Universe. Now if you dug this video, please hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to hang out with us some more. Also be sure to check out our playlist currently flashing on your screen right now for more great nerdy goodness. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.